into your knowledge about Russia, because Russia is once again using disinformation videos to smear President Biden ahead of the November election. The New York Times highlights one video circulating on social media claiming to tell the story of an internet troll farm in Kyiv targeting the American election. A woman, quote, offers a first-person account of how she and her colleagues initially worked in support of President Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine. Then, she says, after a visit by mysterious Americans who were, quote, probably CIA, the group began sending messages to American audiences in support of President Biden. We were told our new target was the United States of America, especially the upcoming elections, the woman in the video says. Long story short, we were asked to do everything to prevent Donald Trump from winning the elections. The Times notes the video is fake, part of an effort to cloud the political debate ahead of the U.S. elections. U.S. officials tell the paper the video is consistent with Russian disinformation operations, as internet warriors aligned with Russia appear to be honing their strategy, and such videos were one of the most immediate threats. According to the Times, Russian operatives are leaning into videos, many of them that falsely purport to be made by independent journalists or whistleblowers. The videos, opposed to blog or social media posts, are most likely to spread beyond the conspiratorial fringes of America and become part of mainstream discourse.
You know, Tom, one of the more maddening things that you will see out there, people talking about the Russian hoax. They keep talking about the Russian hoax. The Russians never tried to influence our elections. It's all, you know, this, that, or the other. You actually have the chairman of the House GOP Armed Services Committee, Intel Committee, and Foreign Affairs Committee all saying that Russian disinformation is being spread on the House floor by Republican members. And here we have more reporting of what's never really stopped, and that is Vladimir Putin and Russia trying to help Donald Trump get elected again. I mean, hoax? There is no hoax. The propaganda is going not only on media sources now. Putin has now figured out a way to use House GOP members to spread Russia's lies.
And in part, you know, the Americans, the American public is a willing accomplice here, because when this stuff shows up on the internet or on you know, Facebook or YouTube or wherever people get it, you know, when I'm asked what can they do about this, I say stop getting your news there. You know, it's kind of like eating junk food all day. You know, there's a really simple answer to that. Stop eating, you know, stop having milkshakes for breakfast. And people don't want to do that, because one thing the Russians really understand about us is that Americans are easily bored and we love a good story. We love this stuff. We eat it up. The Republicans in Congress, I think, know exactly what they're doing, because it's convenient to them and it gives them a good narrative to say, you know, the classic, well, I'm just asking questions kind of pose. And I think that, you know, it's just ready-made kind of convenient propaganda for them. But in the end, the problem with the Russian attack on America is how much the Americans really do welcome it, and that because we have an open system of government, because we have a free press, we're sort of defenseless against stopping any of it. And it has to be on each one of us to just decide we're not going to get our information there. And I just don't have a lot of hope that that's going to happen.
That's what
So, Jen, you sadly know a thing or two about the impact of Russian disinformation campaigns back in 2016. We had Senator Warner from Virginia on the show this week saying he's more worried about foreign election interference this time around even than in 2020. He thinks we're less prepared. It's not just going to be Russia, it could be China, other places as well. What would the advice be to the Biden campaign? How can they learn from this? How can they combat this?
The hardest thing that we had to combat in 2016 was no one believed us. Right? Like when we would say, even after there had been reporting on what Russia was doing in the Post, and we would go to the press and say, you know, we think a lot of this is coming from Russia. And it was just so fantastic for everyone that they couldn't really, they couldn't appreciate that that's what was really happening. And now people do know that.
Hey,
so I
Jen,
think it's a
can
lot
Can I
easier
read this
to,
for
yeah.
you? Can I read this for you? And then you continue?
Yeah.
It's not just the Washington Post. The GOP Senate Intel report that was run by Marco Rubio. They wrote this in 2017. The report's language often starts describing Trump's campaign chairman Manafort's receptivity to Russian outreach as, quote, a grave counterintelligence threat that made the campaign susceptible to malign Russian influence. Marco Rubio's committee said Russia presented a grave counterintelligence threat. That was Marco Rubio and the Republicans, and yet people still want to write op-eds on the Wall Street Journal editorial page talking about Russia hoax. Marco Rubio talked about Russia presented by this disinformation. Let me say it again. Quote, a grave counterintelligence threat.
And they had, in 16, we had the Post did a good story in June of 16 to say where they thought a lot of this was coming from, U.S. administration officials on background. And of course, on October 7th, 2016, we had the declaration from the Obama administration that Russia was behind the hacks. We later had an intelligence estimate that it was not just the Russians behind this, but trying to help Donald Trump win. That was all during the Obama administration. But it was too fantastic for people to appreciate. And now we've had 8 years of this. And it is, and I think at least, even though it's more widespread, when you say you can't trust that it's it could be from the Russians, at least people understand now that's something that they got to look out for. And I think you just have to call out lies immediately and right away and point them out to people. And people have to be better judges of what they're reading.
That's a lot to ask for.
It is.
So, Eddie, people have to be aware of this. We just listened to Jen's tale, which is actually factual. It actually happened. It actually impacted a presidential election. And it's not just Russia now. There's a tsunami of misinformation out there. Russia, China, various other countries, all aimed at our increasingly fragile democracy. Right. So part of what you do for a living is teach. And part of what you teach is the history of this country, of race in this country, of the culture of this country today. This is a potential lethal threat to our country.
Absolutely. In so many ways, people are kind of post-fact in some ways. They want to affirm their opinions. And in some ways, this is also echoing something Tom said, right? That America's appetite for this drives it. That, stop drinking milkshakes for breakfast, although some of us like milkshakes for breakfast.
Smoothies.
What makes it successful is that it's actually tapping into a set of positions and beliefs that many Americans hold, and then they're exploiting it and amplifying it. And so one of the questions we have to ask ourselves is not only are they hacking and doing the kind of concrete work, why is it so effective? How are they exploiting?
Eddie, they don't have to anymore. All they have to do is get the information on the Chinese Communist Party's app, which of course is TikTok. The Chinese Communist Party runs that app. They make sure that the algorithms are run in a way that spreads disinformation into America. If you don't believe it, talk about the Uyghurs. Talk about human suffering in Hong Kong. Talk about human rights abuses in China, and see how much of a pickup that gets on TikTok. They kill it. But if you spread disinformation about Joe Biden, Russian disinformation, you've got the Russians and the communist Chinese running roughshod across America, and everybody's against it except Donald Trump, who now supports TikTok.
Right, for his own interests, right? So I think that all makes sense to me, Joe. And part of what I'm trying to wrap my mind around is the way and why it's effective. It's effective, of course, for all the reasons you've just laid out, but it's also exploiting extant divisions, right? There's a kind of dispositional orientation to the misinformation that allows it to take root. And I think, how do we address both ends of it? That's what the Russians and the Chinese are doing and what we are susceptible to, if that makes sense.
There's so much stupidity out there that is peddled by people. Two great examples. There's a guy that used to be in Mumford and Sons who debated at the Oxford Union, debated Nancy Pelosi, and when he got pushed into a corner, he just talked about Joe Biden's severe dementia. That he's has such severe dementia he can hardly operate. It's a lie. It's a complete, total lie. And yet that's pushed, and it's pushed by these third parties. I mean, and you have other lies about how great Russia is. Tucker Carlson running around saying, "Oh my God, look at the grocery! It's a worker's paradise." He seriously sounded like a guy who defected to the Soviet Union in '62, and he pushes that, he peddles that Russian disinformation actively.
Yep.
Yeah, and giving it a large platform, not as large as it used to have on cable, but still does. Aaron Rodgers drafted to that mission this week. And we should note, where's Vladimir Putin today? He's in Beijing. He's meeting with Xi Jinping. I mean, this is sort of the alliance that's against democracies. And we don't know if this is a topic of conversation, but certainly their greater interests are making the United States as weak as possible.